And welcome to another episode of Subculture After Dark. I'm Dave, and Harley is here with me as well. How you going, mate?
Hello, how are you?
I am going really, really well because we have got an absolutely massive show for everybody this week. We've got some amazing Australian talent with bands like Days Like These, Battlesnake, North Road, Oceanlord. I literally just got off the phone with the guys from Oceanlord. They were having their celebratory drinks with their album coming out, and so they were talking to us while they were having those drinks. But mate, how have you been recently? What have you been up to?
Um, Putting these shows together, that's mostly what I've been doing, and yeah, not half as exciting as you interviewing all the guys we're going to hear today or whenever you're hearing this podcast.
And so many of these bands have got amazing stories as well. Like North Road, they're a band that's coming out of an area of Melbourne where you and I basically spent a lot of time. Like I grew up in
That's
Oakley,
true.
and yeah, North Road was actually the road where my very first girlfriend lived on. So it's kind of weird seeing that.
I was so worried the story was going to take a tragic turn. Like she was killed on that road. I'm like, whoa, dude, heavy.
No, she was like my primary school kind of girlfriend, and she lived on North Road, just in Huntingdale. So it's like, yeah, seeing this band, but these guys came out of nowhere during the lockdowns, and suddenly they're getting like tens of thousands of listens on Spotify. Um, they're playing these amazing shows. Their debut EP came out during the lockdowns and did really, really well. And now they're, as they say in the interview, they're moving on to the next chapter. So we're going to get to play River.
That's fantastic. It's good hearing that people are having success from the lockdown time. It's been such a pain in everyone's butt, but this
Yeah.
is awesome.
Well, even like two of the other bands that we're talking to tonight as well, the Ocean and also Oceanlord. Oceanlord set up a an in-house studio during the lockdowns, and that helped them a lot with this album. But also, the Ocean, Robin from the Ocean says during the interview that this album probably wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for the lockdowns, because they're a band based in Berlin. They tour around Europe all of the time. I think he says in the interview, just the last year alone, they've done 160 shows around Europe. And he said the
Wow.
lockdown actually provided them with the perfect opportunity to sit down and work on this album. And the result of this new album is it's very different to what we've heard from the Ocean before. They're a very prog rock kind of prog metal band, but on this album they've actually brought in a lot of synths, and there's a lot more of an electronic sound. And he said that kind of came about because of the lockdown. But the other band I wanted to talk about on tonight's show that like came out of nowhere is Battlesnake. This is their debut album, and they had a couple of singles and stuff out, and then suddenly got a phone call asking if they wanted to open for Kiss. Could you imagine being in a band and getting that phone call?
I can imagine that, and that's about as far as I can get.
And then from then on, from there, they ended up opening for Jane's Addiction and the Smashing Pumpkins as part of that tour as well. So Battlesnake are pretty excited about their new album. And of course, when I was interviewing Elliot, he asked me what tracks were we going to play, and we got discussing that. So we're actually going to do a double shot of Battlesnake tonight because they've got two amazing tracks
That is
off there.
awesome.
Yeah. But look, I cannot wait to play Kingdom later in the show from Oceanlord. I think Oceanlord have dropped one of the best albums of this year. They're a doom metal outfit from Melbourne, and this album sounds absolutely amazing. The opening track, Kingdom, is what we're going to play tonight, and it is stunning. So I can't wait to play that. Also, Paracrona are a new band out as well across in Europe. We're going to play their track, Carry the Cross, which is an amazing track. So we've got a lot tonight, don't we?
You do. We're action-packed tonight.
Yeah, so let's jump into it. Of course, Harley a couple of episodes ago started asking bands to do covers and send them in, and a group called Host sent in Iran. Well, their label sent it in on their behalf. So we're actually going to start the show tonight with Iran, which
Yeah,
correct
I
me
think
if
you're
I
gonna love it. It's so good. This, yeah,
correct me if I'm wrong. It's a Flock of Seagulls cover, isn't it?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Flock of
yeah.
Seagulls. Yeah,
Yeah, so we're going to play Iran by Host. And of course, if you do have any covers out there and you're in a heavier band, send them through because we're only too happy to play them on this show, but let's kick
Yeah,
off.
we'd like to do a collective. So yeah, we're serious. Send
Definitely.
us
Yep.
your best offerings. Reach out to us if you've got any questions.
We,
We're on the social media under Subculture Entertainment. So, subcultureentertainment.com if you want to go to the website, and you'll get directed from there.
Yeah, we are so serious about this that we are actually, and I'm still thinking about this. I would like to actually go and talk to a record label about releasing a collection of these. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
agreed. I'd like to do a bigger project with this as like the soundtrack to it as well. If people are interested, get in touch. We're serious.
definitely. And I've even got a record label in mind, John Raptus. We might be knocking on your door, mate. So, yeah, if you've got any like covers out there that you guys want to do, definitely send it in. But we're going to kick off tonight's Subculture After Dark with Iran by Host. And welcome back to Subculture After Dark. Well, we are about to play a brand new track that we are absolutely sure that you're all going to fall in love with out there. It's called Bloodshed, and it's from Brizzy duo Days Like These. And we thought, you know what, let's get to know this track a little bit more. So we've actually got Noah from the band on the phone right now. Welcome to the program, mate.
Hey, hello Dave, thank you for having me.
No problem. Now, so many of us are excited about this single coming out because this is also the last single coming out before the EP drops this week. So tell us a little bit about Bloodshed and what our listeners can expect to hear on this track.
Ooh, Bloodshed. Well, so far, it's had quite a big response. I guess coming up to the release of the EP, I think I expected maybe things to I don't know. Maybe it caught me by surprise either way. The reception. It's just been played and streamed and a lot more, and I've received a lot more messages. So really stoked people like it. I hope everyone listening likes it too. But what to expect? I didn't listen to them a lot, but our producer that we worked with grew up listening to Pendulum, and I hear sort of like a modern take on their classic sort of songs.
Yeah.
I also hear sort of Enter Shikari, Bring Me the Horizon sort of influence, and they're two really big acts for us. There's a lot of electronic work. Overall, it's this really driven, energetic rock song, but there's so much sort of intricacy in the electronics. I would even liken it to some influence of dubstep. There's some screams in there, but overall, super catchy melodies, very interesting vocals from our singer Callan. I'd like to think that my drumming was cool. Yeah, and really, really energetic. It really builds to the end, and crazy hooks. I hope everyone digs it.
I'm glad that you mentioned energy, because that was the first thing that hit me when I took a listen to the track, was how much energy there is in this track. Was that something that you guys were aware of when you first started to work on it?
I think so, or at least I think basically the original intention of Bloodshed was it was a scenario where we were sitting down with our producer Chris in the studio, and we'd worked on I think we'd worked on / written 5 songs, at least in the sort of demoing stage. And he said, you know what, I think these are all these tracks that we've done provide a lot of diversity and sort of really widen the spectrum of styles and stuff on the EP, which is going to provide a great journey for the listeners. But he said, I think we should try and work on, or at least try and see how it goes if we sit down with the intention of writing singles for this EP, just hit catchy songs that are really going to, I don't know, I guess catch people's attention and really have a lot of energy. So I guess that was intentional. I think, I don't know, I think Chris started with just something really simple. It's very easy to overthink the creative process, especially for myself. But I think Chris really brings a lot of balance to us and just gives us a lot of food for thought, a lot to learn from. And yeah, he sat down with the sort of main chord progression. It's just like a general pop structure. And just that fast pace, I think, really picks things up. And it's this really big wall of sound with all the electronics. So I guess that intention of energy was there, and I'm glad it comes across.
You've worked with Chris for a long time now. How did that relationship start between the band and Chris as your producer?
How did it start? Probably like a lot of his clients and the people that he works with. He's in a band called Wind Waker, and they released an EP called Empire. It was a very good EP, maybe 4 years ago now. It really took them places, and I think I should mention the important part of that, which is that Chris produced it, and he mixed and mastered it as well. So I think people heard this EP and went, wow, and just the fact that Chris worked on it as the drummer of his band Wind Waker was really appealing to people. He showed some really creative songwriting for that sort of heavy music world. Yep. And that piqued our interest. We sort of went to Chris because, I don't know, like I think we have a really strong admiration for Chris because we're just genuinely fans of what he does and his band. Yeah. Since we were like 18, so that's how it started. And it started in 2019, which is so crazy to think, but it's gotten to the point where I think we gel so well together, and Chris is constantly learning new things that then we are learning from him, to the point where I can't really see us working with anyone else except Chris. Maybe we'll get big enough where we'll have a bigger array, but at least in Australia currently, I feel like Chris is our person, and other than that, maybe we'd even self-produce, but we're still learning a lot, so I think we'll be working with Chris for the foreseeable future.
That's awesome to hear. Now, a lot of people might listen to the title of this track and think that it's about some violent rampage or something, but it's not. It's actually about the blood, sweat, and tears that you guys have put into your career, isn't it?
Yes, totally correct, Dave. Yeah, the name the name is definitely gritty, and it suggests something like that. I think especially because maybe people get the impression that we are sort of involved in the heavy music world, and there is a lot of exploration of those themes. But no, this song was the actual theme of the song and the actual subject being around the hard work and sort of the real dedication of following a passion or something you love, and even though it's something you love, there is this huge investment of yourself, emotionally and mentally, etc. And Callan sort of decided that subject, and it was very fun and so interesting to me, especially standing outside and watching Callan work on these lyrics and these subjects, to just present that. And I guess in some sense, maybe people might find it a little sort of self-indulgent, but I don't know. It is the truth, and it is nice to show a side of us that isn't so much like, oh, I am Callan, and this is my personal emotional journey about some particular subject. And it's not particularly in a negative light. It's actually in a really positive light, I think, and it's this very, very tenacious take on what we do, because we really believe. I'd like to think, there's this idea that sort of art comes to a person, and the person is the vessel, and sort of creativity flows through that vessel that is that person. But I really believe that something we're doing is special, and I believe it has a lot of potential, and I hope people see that as well.
Definitely. Now, talking of potential, your last EP, Wide Awake, it came out and it was well received, but it kind of came out while Australia was still in and out of lockdown, which meant that you guys didn't really get to do a great tour off the back of it. What are you guys hoping to do differently this time around with this EP coming out, now that we're wide open and you can do gigs and things like that?
Yeah, so true. There is definitely a lot more happening. It feels like things are sort of in full swing again. What do we hope? Thankfully, the year after Wide Awake came out, we did a lot of touring for us. I mean, it was our first year of touring, full stop, and we did a few. We played some really big shows. What do we hope? I guess we hope that it appeals to the right people, because look, our music and our EP icon, not everyone's going to dig it, and that's totally okay. But I think it'll get to the right people, and the right people will see what I believe is our potential and give us a shot. We're definitely a little fish in a big pond, Dave. But
Yep.
I hope people believe in us enough to give us an opportunity. We just want to take this EP out on the road and expose it to as many audiences as possible. As much as the online space and social media is really great, word of mouth and face-to-face interactions is a huge part of success, I believe.
Definitely. Have you got any tours planned at the moment, or shows planned, or is that something that we'll just have to watch for on social media?
Full transparency, not currently. I've talked to a few local bands, and I think there's a few of us as local artists who sort of feel there is sort of a lack of offers coming through at the moment. But yeah, I think we're going to release the EP, see how we feel. And, I think I'm trying to remind myself and ourselves as days like these, that as much as it is good to wait for, to sort of let a release or anything like this breathe and take its time to get to people, it's also important to create opportunities if they're not coming to you, because I guess we can't wait forever. So look, if push comes to shove, we might take it on the road independently, maybe book our own headline tour and just get some artists that we really believe in that, might play with us.
Awesome. Well, mate, we are going to play Bloodshed on our show right now. So what would you like to say to everybody out there listening before they take a listen to this amazing track?
Oh, I don't really know. Hey everybody, I'm Noah from Days Like These. This is our song Bloodshed. If you've been listening to the earlier half of this, it's about the dedication that we have as a band, the true passion that goes into everything we do. We love this, and we at the soul of this, I think there's a lot of community, and who knows, maybe you could be a part of our community if you like it. So give it a listen. If you dig it, find us on social media, come out to a show. Hopefully we'll see you there.
Well, listeners, this is Bloodshed from Days Like These. Noah, thank you so much for taking the time to chat to us today. It's been an absolute honour having you on the show, and can't wait until you guys head back down our way sometime soon as well.
Thank you, David. It's been a pleasure. Hopefully soon.
It's worth all the bloodshed.
And welcome back to Subculture After Dark. Well, we've got a band joining us tonight on the show that I am sure you are all going to want to know a little bit more about. This band is called Paracrona, and they've got a brand new album out called Sun God, and we thought, what better way than to get to know the band than to actually get a few of the members on the phone to chat all about this amazing new album. So if everyone would love to introduce themselves, we'll jump straight into it. So, who have we got on the phone tonight?
Well, I'm Ringo Christian van Roffler. I'm the vocalist and writer. I write together with Øystein, but Øystein couldn't join us today. And
I'm just the mentor of the group and life itself.
She's also a backup singer as well for the band.
And then you have me, Greg Schneider. I play the bass. Step in for Øystein during this conversation.
So, tell us a little bit about the band. For a lot of people out there listening, in a moment they're going to listen to your music for the very first time. Tell us a little bit about the history of the band.
Well, Paracrona, we started recording in 2016. Then we were done at 2019, and then we were planning to do a music video, but then I started to have cancer, so I had to fight that for a while, and basically until I was finished with that and built my strength on, we did the music video, and then we started doing this release. So yeah, and we also me and Øystein met in 2007 in Wacken Open Air, and he heard my voice growling, and he said like, "Oh my God, that voice! You have to be on my album. We have to do music together." And basically, we started then already, but then it was under a different name, and we weren't so focused on it as when we started in 2016.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about this album. Greg, tell us about your involvement with this album and how it's all come together.
Well, it's Ringo and Øystein who has recorded it in the studio. They recorded it, as Ringo said, in 2019. I joined the band last year, mostly for the music video and for live performance and stuff. But they recorded the band at the Maristrand studio here in Norway. Is known for doing metal music, and they have Bård Kolstad doing some of the drums on the album. He's a progressive drummer from Leprous, and it all got mixed at Fredrik Nordström studio. He's also famous for metal and black metal, and so it's really high quality on this album and the production of it.
So Ringo, going right back to the start with this album, did you have any goals in mind when you first sat down to work on this album?
Well, actually, I had in my mind, some that ancient belief systems, what's being used in the cultures, and still the magic what they use to control this world. Still, how is it called? It's what's it called? The magic what they try to use, like Freemasonry, they still do all of this ceremonial things.
Yep.
How to control this, and many more cultures, like in Hollywood, how to control all of these systems. And this is where a lot of these lyrics are about, and that is what I wanted to present to wake people up what is actually really going on, like how messed up actually everything is, and that we all should stand together to make a better world instead of a shittier world, because it's bad enough.
Not be too manipulated.
Yeah, to break free. Yeah, basically.
So tell us a little bit about the songwriting process. Were these songs that you found that came easy to you because it was a topic that you wanted to write about, or did you have to go away and do a little bit of research as well?
Well, I knew already about it a lot because I also lived in LA and I've been through it and I've seen it, what they were all doing. So basically almost sold my soul. And that's why I know about this, what they're actually doing. And the easiest way for me, the lyrics is I basically get possessed while I write it. I basically, the music is already there. I just do what the spirits do, basically. So it's already in the ether.
And what song was it that you made something about?
Yeah, like therefore I moved the time. For example, I was totally possessed during the whole song of the process. It's I didn't even have my mind at all. It was a straight out written without any lyrics, and all the lyrics came straight out.
Wow.
And recorded once, and that is a true possession. Yeah. So I learned to just let go, and that is how I write music.
And all
basically.
the terms that you don't use in normal as well, that you don't know about, and you just check them up after.
Yeah, and they check all of the lyrics up, and this is sick stuff. What spirits know. Yeah.
It is an absolutely amazing album. Greg, what was your first thoughts when you read Ringo's lyrics?
Well, for me, it's, metal has always been challenging whatever is during that time problem in society. That's at least what I think about metal when I see different lyrics of different bands up through time. And the Ringo's lyrics, they are really centered on what is the problem now. So they're very in time. No, it's not what was the problem not just 20 years ago or 30 years ago, when the first black metal bands started coming in their lyrics about, fighting Christianity and stuff like that. This is relevant for the current time, which I felt was really refreshing, because you keep the whole metal attitude alive. You are still addressing stuff that are, challenging people every day, but it's relevant for this time and age as well.
Siri, what's it like being around Ringo when he's songwriting? Like he said before, he has a different way of going about things, and the results are absolutely fantastic. So what's it like being around him when he's songwriting?
Well, then I'm not around him. I try to stay away. Because he needs his peace. Needs some space.
So, Ringo, I also wanted to talk to you about the style of music, because you call it titanium metal. Tell us a little bit about that, and about the sound of the band that you've been able to create.
It is because it's titanium stands for it's slightly more beautiful to look at, and what you guys will see in a video and in live performance. It's really strong, a little bit lighter, but very difficult to create, like titanium, because it's a very difficult metal to create, the process. Like that is how you hear about the riffs and how it's created. It's very, it's hard with all the tempo changes and the key changes. So, yeah.
Well, Greg, our listeners are about to hear Carry the Cross for the very first time. What can you tell us about that track?
I think that's the one that has the most progressive elements in it. Some of it due to, how Orkolsa plays the drums. But it's a really strong track. It takes you to different tempo changes, to different rhythms. You have it's like a journey. And it's probably the most progressive of all the tracks on the album. And it's a great track for the music video, which is also one of the reasons I think they picked exactly this track to make a music video of it.
Awesome. Now, Siri, the big news that all of our listeners out there want to know is, when will the album be out so that everybody can hear it?
Yeah, that's the 21st of May.
24th?
Yeah, 24th of May.
And Ringo, what are your plans after the album comes out? Are you guys hoping to get out there and do some shows, or what are the plans?
Definitely. We are going to try to set up a tour after. And maybe start first with the Scandinavia tour, then the European tour, then maybe go to Australia as well. We have to see what brings and what is all possible in the short time frames I work.
Yeah.
I want to do things fast, but everything have to be proper. And since we want to give and deliver a good show, things takes time.
Definitely. Well, we are going to play Carry the Cross on our show for the very first time right now. So what would you all like to say to everybody out there, not only before they listen to this amazing track, but before they go out and grab a copy of Sun God when it comes out as well?
Well, first of all, I hope you guys like the music, and Carry the Cross is really the burden within yourself, because everybody carry a cross. It's like the heavy burden, and it's about that we all are being tortured in a way, and it's
and breaking free from.
Yes, that's true, and you will see it really clearly in the music video what's coming, because the music video comes from Carry the Cross, comes out also on the 24th.
Awesome. Greg, is there
And then
anything?
it will be really cool.
Greg, do you have anything you'd like to say to people out there?
Enjoy the track. Hope you buy the album, and I hope you like the image that we're bringing. That you can be metal, you can be yourself, you can be tough, but you can also be a pretty awesome guy to be around.
And Siri?
Yes, exactly. Be a good person.
If I want to say something?
Yes.
Yeah, actually. I will say that the antidote to use at this time is actually sulforafan. It's something that most people that have been following orders actually need nowadays.
Definitely.
And that is, yeah, you know what sulforafan is?
Sorry, what was that? You just dropped out for a moment.
Yeah, I said sulforafan. That is actually the active component in broccoli sprouts. Yeah, but it has something to do with the whole thing. Many young people are dying nowadays, and I just suggest take it. If you have been following too much of it lately, sulforafan is a very powerful component to detox.
Definitely. Well, Siri, Ringo, Greg, thank you so much for taking the time to chat to us today. It's been an absolute honour having you on the show. Here is Carry the Cross.
Thank you.
Well, listeners, welcome back to Subculture After Dark. We have got a very, very special guest on the phone right now to tell us about a fantastic new album that has come out from a US doom metal band called DiGelsomnia. And we thought to tell us a little bit about that, let's get Andy on the phone right now. Andy, welcome to the program.
Well, it's wonderful to be here. Very flattered.
So, Andy, tell us a little bit about your brand new project that you've been working on, because this is the debut album for your band. So tell us a little bit about your band and how this has all come together.
Sure. I had been part of a project called Lyrica about 13 years ago. It was like a rock heavy metal opera. And I planned to have Robert Lowe of Candlemass and Solitude Eternus fame to do the vocals. And he, when he sent me back for vocals on this song, it's entitled Entombed by Choice, it's on the album, he was so good that I was completely, I was familiar with Robert from Solitude Eternus and a big fan. But I was just so blown away by how well he did that I started thinking about doing a doom, classic metal album. So I began writing for the album in about 2020. And it's been a long, arduous process. Doing albums today is a lot harder than it used to be, as you probably know, Dave.
Yep.
And it took me a few years to get everything rolling, but now it's done, and I hope everybody likes it.
Of course, also during that time, the world went into a pandemic as well. How did that affect this album coming together?
Oh, very much so. As far as Robert getting his vocals in, it was hard getting around, as you can imagine. There was also, even the guys who played on the album, it was difficult. And I mean, we're talking about 3 different states within the U.S. because the instrumentalist came out of Vermont, and which is where I'm from originally, and Robert's based in Texas. So it was crazy. It took longer than it needed to because of the COVID, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about the concept behind this album, because I was just reading through the story behind the album. Tell us a little bit about that story and why you chose that story for this album to center around.
I already had an idea for my original story. That's the story began as completely original, and it is about a warrior angel whose name is Sistina, and she meets up with some rather nasty baddies from the world of H.P. Lovecraft. I'm sure you're aware of Lovecraft.
Yep.
I've been reading Lovecraft since I was about 10 years old. I've seen plenty of metal bands that use Lovecraft as a source for lyrics and subjects, but I've never seen his characters, for instance, utilized in an interactive way with an original outside story. So at least in metal. I started with the idea of this warrior angel saga, then I integrated Lovecraft's character Nyarlathotep, since I felt he was the perfect villain for the story.
So where did that idea come from for you in the first place?
Some of it came from just there's I had my usual references from that I carried over from Lyrica that are part of my compositional process. The philosophies of Nietzsche and Hegel and Sartre and the books by Stephen King and Lovecraft, all that. But it was Lovecraft especially that attracted me because the actual villain, Nyarlathotep, the antagonist, is known in Lovecraftian circles as being highly adept at psychological tricks and for being very slippery to grasp onto as an entity. In the story, he purposely leaves a relic, which is a trapezohedron, which is like a multi-faced cube, or stone, excuse me, for the protagonist, the warrior angel, and it really is about her being duped by this awful, what people call him the stalker from the stars. He mentally, psychologically messes with her and causes her to do a lot of things she didn't need to do. She's a warrior. She's a fighter. She believes that these messages she's getting through this trapezohedron, that this multi-angle stone that she found, are from God. And it turns out they were never from God. They were actually from this thing. And he leads her through a lot of journeys and things like that. Ultimately, she becomes ensorcelled the more she looks into the stone, and she becomes trapped within the stone. And that's how the story ends for this album to be continued.
So when you first came up with the idea of the warrior, did you kind of sit down and work out almost like a screenplay style where the story would go? Did you do artwork so you knew what she looked like? Like, what was the process there? Because I'm sure there's a lot of young musicians out there that would love to hear that process.
Sure. I had my original story. I had a really excellent idea of what I was going to do with the character. And, what I saw her as an artistic creation. And then from there, I just harkened back to Lovecraft and the stories I loved when I was a kid. And I was writing the music, and usually I write the music first before the lyrics. And I started thinking about lyrics. The Warrior Angel story, that was already embedded in my mind. That was going to happen. But when I started adding this nasty from Lovecraft, things really opened up, and I got very inspired, and a whole story started weaving from that. So it kind of took me, it took me up with it. It lifted me up with it, so to where I was able to expand upon it. And most of the lyrics were quite easy to write.
I'm looking at the album cover right now. What was that like for you to see your warrior come to life like that with that album cover?
It was wonderful. Michael Calandra is a fantastic artist who is apparently kind of overlooked. He's a professional artist. He does all kinds of great work, but he's getting more attention now, which he deserves. But when I saw what he came up with, I was completely, that's exactly what I'm talking about, because the beast beside the Warrior Angel is an avatar of Nyarlathotep, very common, one of the dragons. And of course, the fight against this dragon is portrayed in the song Mayhanam.
Awesome. So, when that artwork came to life, did you actually work with the artist and explain what the warrior looked like, or how did that process happen?
Well, I basically went through a lot of his stuff, and my eyes fell upon something that was completely wow.
Yep.
I thought, this is exactly what I want. Exactly what I wanted.
Now, the tracks themselves, you mentioned before that you were all in different states of the states when you were working on this. How did that all come together? What was that process like?
Well, Robert, I've known since, it's been about 11 years, give or take.
Yep.
And, of course, the band members that I work with, we started off in Vermont when I was living in Vermont, and my producer, Andre McCara, who also plays rhythm guitar on the album, I've been working with him for something like, almost 15 years. So I've known him. I've known Tom, the bassist, roughly that long, and Gary Spalding, the drummer. Those guys, the band members, besides Robert, I've been with on and off for 15 years, and very, very satisfied with their work. Robert, of course, is one of the premier vocalists in metal. It's not just that, we could just call him a metal icon, but he's not just that. That's like saying somebody's, done as far as performance goes, et cetera, et cetera. That's not Robert Lowe. Robert Lowe continues to be one of the best metal vocalists in the world, and I exploited that. He was fantastic, and he was beyond my wildest dreams as far as what he did.
Definitely. So what are the hopes for the band now? Are you hoping to play shows, or do you think that you'll just be a studio band that brings albums out?
We'd like to do some shows. We have to get the album out first. So we're hoping to get that out. It should be June 2nd. We're working on that right now. And I want to thank you for the kind words about the album. It took a lot of work as far as musically goes. I really put everything into that. So it does show some compositional carryovers from my old projects and my symphonies and stuff like that. So I'm just really glad. It seems like people in general are generally very positive about it. So very grateful.
I just love the story that the album captures. Like, are you planning on doing any more of that? Will you do novels or graphic novels, or even like maybe a film? Like, is there any plans to expand that story even more? I
think everybody who gets into this kind of this we could almost say a cinematic thing. You know, I like to term it that way because some of my more orchestral writing is very cinematic. You know, likes to have that for, you know, hey, this would be great if this could happen, and if people want it, then, you know, we're definitely going to explore that and do it. You know, books, whatever comes of it. Yes, I think the story has a lot of potential. I have the second album lyrics it's already fermented in my mind. Ferment, I'm drunk from it. It's already working itself out in my mind, so I have an idea where I want to go with this.
Yep.
And yeah, so, you know, anything from that, you know, as a creator, you know, you would love to see something like that happen, and if people want it, it will happen.
Definitely. Well, Andy, you mentioned that the album's coming out on June 2nd. Where will people be able to grab a copy? Because I reckon a lot of people are going to want to grab physical copies of this one.
Well, that's really the only, you know, thing that we're having some problems with. We had to make sure we got the design and layout all set. So we're hoping it's going to be June 2nd, but the only thing that would make it, you know, lag behind a little bit would be the CD, you know, the physical stuff. Because, I mean, you know, you can do the MP3s. I could do that today.
Yep.
But, you know, as far as that goes, you know, we want to make sure people get a really good CD copy. And I have many people asking for vinyl, and we really want to do that. It can't be right off the bat, but probably let's cross our fingers later this year. Because I think on vinyl, you know, any kind of doom metal, or you probably remember Black Sabbath and all that, you know, they sound, St. Vitus, the early St. Vitus, sounds terrific, you know, on vinyl with that really cool bassy, warm sound. And I think that would sound great. You know, this as well would sound terrific like that.
Well, Andy, we're going to play Entombed by Choice on our show right now. So what would you like to say to everybody out there, not only before they listen to this track, but before they go out and grab the album in June as well?
This track in particular is a psychological thing. There's a lot of allegory in there. I'm a huge fan of the composer Richard Wagner. I mean, not the man, but the music. And so he's always used allegories in his operas. So I kind of, you know, picked that up from him. And what's going on here is this is about people who, it could be applied to, I mean, there's many applications. But one of the applications could be people who invent themselves and reinvent themselves on social media over and over again. You know, people who have 8 different accounts under 8 different names and have different stories for every different, incarnation of themselves. You know, in a way, that's a bit like Nyarlathotep, who shows up in all those avatars to fool people and trick them. It seems like people are being kind of dishonest in that sense. And at the end, toward the end, when Robert sings, you finally sold your perfect world. In other words, you convinced somebody, maybe even yourself, that this thing that you made up, this persona that you made up, is for real.
Definitely. Well, mate, thank you so much for taking the time to chat to us today. It's been an absolute honor having you on the show. We cannot wait to see where this story goes over the next few albums, but thank you for spending time with us today.
Thank you so much for your very gracious words, and I'm very flattered to be having this interview with you. You have a very interesting page.
Oh, please, another man.
And welcome back to Subculture After Dark. Well, I'm very excited at the moment because we've finally been able to get a band on the show that we've been wanting to talk to for a long time. The band, of course, is called Battlesnake, and they've got a brand new album out right now that we want to talk to them about. So we thought, hey, let's actually get one of the members of the band on the phone to chat all about it. Welcome to the program, Elliot.
Cheers, Dave. Thanks so much for having me.
No problem. Now, mate, the last year must have been absolutely crazy for you. Not only have you been working on new tracks, but you got that one phone call to open for Kiss. What's it been like it being in the band over the last 12 months? It must have been a pretty crazy ride.
Oh, mate. Honestly, I mean, I can't wait to see. Hopefully, I don't know how the rest of 2023 is going to match up to what's happened in the last year. Like, honestly, opening for Kiss was like, I was like, oh, okay. You know, it's funny, actually. Before we did the gig, I was like, if this is it, if this is all we do, if this is as big as it gets, I'm happy, you know, like opening for Kiss, amazing. Yeah. And then as soon as we did the show, I was like, actually, you know what? I want more. And then the exact same thing happened for the Pumpkins tour, and I was like, yeah, you know what? If this is it, I'm totally happy. That's it. I'm happy. Opening for Pumpkins on a national tour, amazing. And then we did it, and now I'm like, I need more of that.
When you get those phone calls, do you think it's a prank? Like, I recently got offered a job at a radio station and it came through Facebook Messenger, and I was like, no, this has got to be a scam. Like, this can't be real. Do you get that kind of feeling?
Definitely. Particularly for the Kiss show. One of the boys just sent a message in the group chat that we have, and it was like, how do you guys feel about opening for Kiss? And we were like, haha, very funny. But yeah, it definitely feels scammy because it's totally a once in a lifetime opportunity.
Yeah. Do you know how it came about? Like, was the promoter just a fan of the band, or how did that come about?
Look, honestly, I think that there's definitely, the promoter had a big part in us doing that show, but I think that our booking agent just put us forward, and the promoter just took a punt on us in a way. Like, I guess they were looking for something a little bit different.
Yep.
And that kind of complemented Kiss in a way. And then they took a punt on us, and they seemed to really love it. And so did Kiss. And then, 9 months later, we're on the road with the Pumpkins with the same promoter. So yeah, we're super appreciative of all the support that we've received.
And what was it like for you personally, hanging out backstage with people like Gene Simmons? Like, I always get starstruck when I'm at festivals and I have to go up and talk to someone. What was it like for you being around people like Billy Corgan?
Oh, mate, you know what? I actually had a really funny conversation with Gene because I'm the bass player in the band, and obviously so is he, as everybody knows. But I had a really funny conversation with him. They were really generous with their time, but I had my bass on me, and I'm playing a Fender Jazz at the moment, and he was like, "Oh yeah, what's that bass? What do you play jazz on that bass?" And I was like, "Oh, of course, it makes so much sense because he's played custom basses his entire career, basically.
Yeah,
it makes sense that he wouldn't know what that bass is, what potentially one of the most well-known basses in the world is."
Oh, mate. So, where was the album at this point? Like, when you were doing those shows, had you already started work on the album? Or what was that process like for you, having to work on an album with these big shows hanging over your head?
Yeah, totally. We had definitely started on the album. We'd started writing it, for sure. And I think just after Kiss, we were like, all right, we're going to get this thing going. So we went away on a writing week together, and kind of that's where it all happened. And then, over the last 9 months, we've kind of been rolling out singles and doing all of that. Went on a little promo tour, and now, the release of the album. We got a tour coming up in July. So, it's looking really good.
All of those singles have been so well received on our show. You're getting a real following here, and we noticed a lot more requests for your music after the Pumpkins tour as well. So I'm guessing a lot of people were exposed to your music during that tour. But tell us about the album. Like you said, you went away for a week to write. What kind of things were inspiring you guys during that time, and what's that writing process like for you guys?
Yeah, so the writing process for us, it generally starts with, all 7 of us have a very heavy hand in what ends up coming out, but it starts off with kind of like the skeleton crew that we write the skeletons of the songs, which is kind of your bare bones, your verse, your chorus, riffs, very raw, very basic, not suitable for release at all in any way. And then we kind of take it to the rest of the guys, and we just workshop things and work it out. And usually there are many iterations of just one song, and then we come to the decision-making process of what's actually going to be on the album. And I really respect the way that we do our songwriting. We have this rule in the band where there's no bad ideas until it's proven to be bad. So if somebody has an idea, you can't say that sucks unless you've heard it as the person had envisioned it. Like, say you have an idea and you come to me with it, you deserve the respect to be totally heard out and that thought to be totally played out as well.
Yeah.
And then if it still sucks, we won't do it. Doesn't make it. But I think that's really helpful and healthy, particularly with 7 members. There's a lot of ideas and a lot of personalities to kind of keep happy.
There's a uniqueness around your band as well. Like, you're so different to anyone else that's out there at the moment. Does that come into play when you sit down during a writing session to think of new tracks as well?
Yeah, I don't know that we intentionally set out to make anything that sounds different. I think that it's kind of quite organic because of the nature of the makeup of the band. There's 7 of us. There's 7 unique perspectives of the music. We all come from very varied and broad perspectives. So, like, there are some, like, hard. One of our guitarists is like a jazz guitarist, like heavy jazz guitarist, and I grew up playing double bass classical music, and there's some classic rock influences in there. There's so much musical context there that it's kind of inevitable that it will go that way. That kind of be quite an interesting melting pot of influences.
Yeah. You've had singles coming out now for like the last 4 years. What was that like, sitting down to work on an album? Was that a different experience for you guys than just going into the studio and working on one track?
Definitely. And I won't lie, there are a couple of Barneys, couple of arguments. As anybody who's ever done anything creative with other people will know, it can become quite a hostile environment sometimes, but for the most part it was really lovely. And I particularly loved the writing process. We went away to the Blue Mountains and kind of just spent a week there. It was snowing. It was so lovely. But yeah, the recording process of spending a full week together, just intense from like 8 a.m. till 12 at midnight, was just like gnarly. But we all thrive in that situation. Like, we just love making music.
Now, I mentioned before about how many requests we were getting for your tracks after the Pumpkins tour. Was that something that you guys were aware of with those shows as well, that you were going to be basically exposed to people that probably had never heard of the band before? Was that something that was playing on your mind when you were going into those shows? And have you noticed a lot of people following you on social media and stuff after those shows as well?
Big time. Like, we were very aware of the opportunity that was kind of before us before we started the tour, and of the nature of the fans as well. Like, the Pumpkins fans, they're hardcore fans. They're not just like, they don't just listen to whatever. That they're hardcore fans of that music. So I don't know. We're not really like 90s grunge, but I think that the fans really appreciated something a little bit different, and we were totally aware going into it that there was a huge opportunity there, and we're so appreciative of. There's definitely been a big uptick for sure from all of those people, and we're so appreciative of it.
Now, you mentioned that there's going to be a tour coming up this year as well. Tell us a little bit about that. What can fans expect from that tour, and how excited are you guys about being able to get out there and do your own shows?
Oh man, I can't wait. It's going to be a little bit different. It's going to be not on an enormous stage. We're kind of going to go back to the smaller venues, not the 10,000 cap venues, but we'll be happy to get back there because those shows have their own. It's like an intimacy in there that you can't recreate on a huge venue, which is really nice. So in that way, we're really excited to like come out and see everyone, basically see all the new fans that we've made on the Pumpkins tour, as well as see all the fans that have been along for the ride for quite some time. But we got new costumes. We got hopefully going to have flamethrowers. We'll see if the venues will let us have those. But there's lots of new stuff coming in.
Yeah. How much planning does that go in for you? Because like I said, you guys are unique. You're very theatrical. How much planning goes into your shows like that? I remember talking to the guys from Rammstein once, and they were saying that often the planning of what they're going to do on stage, it takes longer than the rehearsals. So how does that work for you guys?
Oh, big time, mate. I couldn't agree more. We spend weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks, like months, preparing a single show because we trigger all of our lighting and pyro and all of that kind of stuff. It takes so much time to assemble. Not only the practical nature of it, but also the software nature of it. That all takes a lot of time. But we luckily have some tech heads in the band, and they love that stuff. So, but I'm glad to hear that it also takes Rammstein a lot of time.
Yeah,
I feel better about us now.
So what are the plans after that? Like after the tour, are you guys going to start work on the next album? Are you hoping to go overseas? What are the plans for the rest of the year after the tour?
Look, like I said before, I will be stoked if the second half of 2023 is as good as the first half. Like it's got a lot to live up to, but hopefully it can live up to it. We're going to start writing the new album very shortly, because all this, it's making us quite excited to keep writing all this positive feedback that we're getting. So we're going to start writing that, and then, man, I'm like desperate to get over to Europe and get over onto those metal festivals, but hopefully that just comes with time. Other than that, we're just going to be probably concentrating on writing this album, and there's a couple of quite fun gigs that I can't really talk about yet, but there's some cool stuff coming up.
Awesome. Well, mate, congratulations for everything that's happened over the last 12 months. You guys really deserve it, and congratulations on such an amazing album. We're going to take a track from the album on the show right now. So what would you like to say to everybody out there before they sit down and listen to this track, but also before they go out and grab a copy of the album as well?
For sure. Hey, firstly, thanks for all for requesting our music. It means so much to us, and we love that you love it. What track are you going to play?
Not sure at the moment. We might actually do a double shot. I'm looking at our run sheet right now, and I'm thinking we might actually do a little bit of a double shot of your music. So I'm thinking maybe Bill's a Banquet and the Battlesnake.
Oh, nice. Love that. Yeah. So prepare yourself for a bit of theatrics, a bit of harmonized guitars, some heavy guitars as well, and some theatrical vocals, I reckon. Go out and crank it up to 11.
So here we go, everybody. Here is a double shot of Battlesnake. Elliot, thank you so much for taking the time to chat to us today. It's been amazing to have you on the show, and we can't wait to see what you guys are up to next.
Hey, thanks so much, Dave. Appreciate your time.
Resides an ancient power, the Battlesnake. Petrol venom shower, behemoth hydra guarding entrance to the netherworld. The serpent's judgment seals fate. myself a scaled leech. Digestive juices melt. Satan's offspring born the wound upon the leper man. Summoned from the muck, Bahamut! Calls the snake, metal Christ from the fire lake. Petrol pumps the blood, the wound that spews the vomit breath. Fire and fang is all that's left. Inside the sulfur pit, held in the tomb eternal. Inside the holy crypt, the force of hell infernal. Diesel dumps the toxic sludge, the burning gasoline. A king of all that rots. I am not from God's green earth. I come from underneath. I have the the shepherd's corpse, firstborn for maiden course. A daddy's hungry, he needs his grub. A mummy's feeding from her demon jugs. A pus mucus and gastric juice. A gingivitis and discharge stew. Welcome to my world.
And welcome back to Subculture After Dark. Well, we have got something very, very special for you tonight on the show. We're going to be playing the brand new single by North Road called River. And to tell us a little bit more about that single, we've actually got on the phone right now Lucas. Welcome to the program, mate.
Hey, lovely to be here.
So, mate, this brand new song, River, I've been listening to it all afternoon, and I've got to say I absolutely love it. So tell us a little bit about how this track came into being.
Yeah, so it was the first track we actually wrote after we had our sort of songwriting sessions and recording sessions for the last EP and single we released last year. So it was kind of a special song for us because we kind of felt like coming out of the last songs that we recorded, we kind of had a bit more of a vision of what kind of sound we wanted to go in the direction of, and I guess what we were trying to achieve with the song and that kind of stuff. So the song itself is really kind of heavily influenced off of the songs that we were doing in the last record, but I guess with a bit more of a like pop touch to it. We definitely listened to a lot of Holding Absence and like Day Secret at the time, so that definitely crept into into the influence of the song for sure.
Definitely. So tell us a little bit about those discussions. You had some discussions about where you wanted to go with your sound as a band. What were those discussions like, and what was the final consensus that you wanted to go with?
I guess we kind of just wanted to work out where our strengths lied and really just hone in on them 100%. So I think, with the last EP, we really saw a lot of potential in songs like Wearing Thin, where it was those sort of poppier and catchier songs that still have those moments of heaviness, but it's all about that dynamic build-up to get to that point. So I suppose with this song, we really wanted to kind of recapture that and just do it, but a lot more well-honed, and I guess a lot sort of tighter. We were kind of just hoping to do what we'd done before, except really just hone in on where our strength really lied. A lot of more clean singing in this song. You can hear a lot of the riffs are a lot more laid back, and they sort of know, to kind of make space for those energetic sections, especially in the chorus and the breakdown at the end, which we really wanted to have that build up out of nowhere to kind of lead into this huge sort of section at the end of the song, for sure. Yeah,
you're a band that's been well known for tackling some pretty deep topics and subjects on your tracks. What is this song actually about? What influenced it and inspired it?
So the lyrics themselves are kind of about accepting, I suppose, where you've come from and what your upbringing's been like, and sort of coming to understand a lot of that as an adult, I suppose. Like, we're still pretty young. We're all around our early 20s still, but sort of getting to that point in our lives where, kind of starting to look back at those sort of foundational years to kind of make sense of why we are the way that we are. Yeah. Which kind of sums it all up in that line, the chorus, which is like, you make me who I am, which is very kind of like looking at those things from an objective point of view and kind of being like, well, I guess not making excuses for things, but rather sort of using it as a way of understanding and then sort of being able to move forward from those foundational points in your life that can have both positive and negative outcomes, but really just, I suppose, looking at them objectively and trying to learn from them, I suppose.
Definitely. With the band tackling such deep and emotional topics, do you quite often have fans reach out to you and say, hey, I listened to this track and and it spoke to me or it helped me through a hard time. Have you guys experienced that?
Yeah, it's been a lot more increasing, especially with this song. Like, I think a lot of people really resonated with that idea, and especially with that chorus, is that, like, everybody, of course, has their own interpretation of different songs, but I felt like with this one, it was funny because a lot of what we were getting back from the fans was kind of what we were putting out. You know, a lot of people saying, like, I picked that up, you know, in hearing the song, and, you know, I really relate to it because I'm going through something similar at the moment. And yeah, I suppose just seeing that come out is it's very inspiring, because I think that, you know, especially the song itself, and I guess the process of songwriting, you're always kind of writing a song, and then by the time it comes to release it, you're almost kind of revisiting that time in your life again. So it's very interesting to kind of, like, once it's out in the world, and then sort of see how people relate to it in their own way. And as usual with songwriting, you kind of end up writing a lyric or writing a line that doesn't sort of end up ringing true to you until, you know, maybe a couple months later or something like that, which was definitely the case with this song. Like, I think we probably wrote it, to be honest, the demo of it about, like, over a year ago, but even still, that core message is something that we're all kind of facing at that point, in this point in our lives, is kind of, you know, just going out into the world and, you know, making sense of what's all happening around us. And
yeah, does
maybe to
does being in a band and having that outlet of being able to write words down and let it out in a song, do you think that actually helps with the pressure that you guys have been feeling?
Yeah, I think it does. Yeah, for me, at least, you know, I can speak on behalf of the boys. It's always been a really important cathartic release for all of us. You know, it's the main reason why we still do it is because, you know, you have to love it for its core. But, you know, at least for me and Jordan, it's very much about, you know, kind of addressing those things for our own, you know, for our own kind of experiences. And I guess the fact that it resonates with other people kind of suggests that, you know, we're not the only ones that feel that way, I suppose.
Yeah. With the success of the first EP and just how well that was received, do you guys feel more pressure now when you sit down to work on a track, or does that kind of, like, make you feel less pressured because you know that you've got an audience out there for your music?
Yeah, I think it's definitely two sides of the same coin. There's definitely a bit more pressure in terms of, you know, every song that we want to release, we want to be able to top the one that we just did. So there's definitely pressure in that regard, but I wouldn't say that it's necessarily, like, bad pressure. It's more so like it doesn't, like, impede on our creative ability or anything. It's more so, I guess it's more so one of those things, like, it provides that kind of standard. So, you know, if you're just going off, if you're on a writing tangent, you know, you can sort of just lay yourself to go on the creative tangent and then sort of hone it back in and go, okay, well, this section here is nowhere near as strong as this song that we did before. Why don't we try something different? And I suppose in that sense, it does open up a lot of different opportunities for experimentation and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, as you said, it has become a lot easier as well, knowing that, you know, we're not just putting out the songs to nobody, and that there is sort of people that we know are going to be interested in the songs. So that definitely helps with any aspect of any of the work of being in a band, is knowing that, you know, your hard work is actually, you know, not going on deaf ears is definitely a super motivating thing. And obviously, you know, we've been a band for a long time, so we've gotten quite used to just, you know, doing it for the sake of loving it. But it definitely is an incredible motivator to have, like, an active audience who are participating and willing to reach out and have conversations with us and turn up to shows and stream the songs. So yeah, for sure, man. I think it goes both ways.
Definitely. And you've had the opportunity to get out and do some live shows recently as well over the last few months with Hometown Throwdown and supporting the Motion Below. That must feel good, being able to get out there and play shows, especially after what it's been like over the last few years.
Yeah, definitely. It's and especially those two shows felt like a bit of a shift. I think that since we released our single in the late last year, I Watched You Fade Away, and this one, you know, earlier in the month, I feel like the shows have been a lot more engaging, and I feel like obviously having that live platform to be able to do it is awesome, and being able to play alongside such awesome musicians and your friends is another thing. But as I said, I think just being able to see that progress of seeing more people out there singing along to your songs each time you play. And it's really interesting seeing which ones the crowd really get into and sing along to, because it's sometimes the ones that you would least, you wouldn't quite expect.
Yeah.
For example, like I watched you fade away. Like, we were talking about the other day. We were like, it's insane how, when you look out in the audience, you see now people singing along to that song as much as they would do wearing thin. So it's definitely gratifying to see that in a live setting, because it really kind of makes it real, I suppose. When you're looking at the Spotify profile each day, it's kind of just numbers on a screen. But then when you see it in a live setting, you're like, wow, people actually really get around this song. And it must really mean something to them, the fact that they've come on and turned up here and been here to celebrate it with us, for one, but number two, to learn all the lyrics and have a dance and a mosh. So, yeah.
So talking of those fans and talking about live shows, what have you guys got planned now for the rest of this year? Will we see another EP? Will we see more live shows? What are the plans there?
There's a lot in the works, man. We are in the middle of locking in a tour for later in the year. We've got a lot of shows lined up. I can't really talk about the specifics, but they're going to be the biggest ones here. And we will be, without giving too much away, we'll have a consistent stream of music coming out through the rest of the year. So, yeah, we're not done for the year for sure.
Awesome. Well, I definitely cannot wait to add those other songs coming out this year onto our playlist as well, because we know a lot of your fans listen to our show. So I guess to finish off, what would you like to say to everybody out there before they listen to River, and what would you like to say to your fans in general?
Oh man, just thank you. As I said, it's the generic response, but it's the authentic one, because it really is, it really is the best thing in the world to be able to do this and to be able to write music and to be able to release it knowing that it means something to people. So, the response to the song so far has already blown us away so much more than we expected. And yeah, just thank you. Thank you for supporting. Thank you for listening. And hope you enjoy it.
Awesome. Well, Lucas, thank you so much for your time tonight, mate. And for all of our listeners out there, here is River by North Road.
Would you still to rise or who I am. Take a look in the mirror. Is the clarity clearer? So I gave you what to say. I've been crossing the river, but you made me forget I can say who I am, who I am, who I am, who I am.
Well, listeners, welcome back to Subculture After Dark. Well, I know a lot of you out there are a very, very big fan of the band The Ocean, and of course their brand new album is out now. So we thought, you know what, let's actually get one of the members of the band on the phone to talk a little bit about this album. Welcome to the program, Robin.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going really, really well, mate. I've got to start off by saying congratulations on this album. This is an absolutely stunning album. You sit down and listen to it from start to finish, and it's like a masterpiece. So congratulations.
Thank you. We're very happy it's finally out.
So this album kind of closes a chapter for the band. So I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about what your fans can expect to hear on this album and how it feels to be closing out that chapter as well.
Well, I guess the album might sound a bit different from what people would have expected after the previous record, Phanerozoic 2, but then again, I think this has always been the case with each and every one of our records. We're trying to not just repeat the same formula over and over again, but to challenge us and our listeners with like a bit of a different direction each time. And this time, it's a more synth-based record. But there seems to be a lot of focus, a lot of emphasis on that fact. But people then tend to think it's a synth pop record. It's not. It's still a heavy record. There's still lots of heavy moments, and I think those heavy moments actually hit even harder because of the fact that there's more build up towards them, and more atmospheric parts leading up to them. So it's our most electronic record. At the same time, it might still be our heaviest record, I guess. So difficult to say what people should expect. It was not really planned for, this whole album. Like, it kind of happened when our synth player Peter started sending me ideas in in late 2020 during the pandemic. And in the beginning, we didn't even know if it was going to be for an Ocean record. But I wanted to do things with him. I added guitars and drums, and by the end of it, we were like, oh yeah, this sounds like an Ocean record.
I was going to ask you about that. Like you said, this is a lot more electronic, and it's probably the heaviest album that you've done to date. Was there any initial discussions about going in that direction at all, or like you just said, was it very, very organic?
No, it was very organic. There was no, this wasn't planned to become an Ocean record. It was just us sitting at home in lockdown, writing music and then exchanging ideas, and then things kind of took on direction from there slowly. So if you look at what we're listening to within the band, we're all listening to a lot of electronic music, and we've always been talking in the band about how much we love Massive Attack, Mezzanine, and how cool it would be to approach that sound from a contemporary heavy music angle. And I think this is maybe what this album became, but without a plan to do that. It's just what we listen to and what we like, and then that's what happens a lot of times.
Some bands and some musicians found that during the pandemic they couldn't be creative at all. It sounds like you were writing a lot during that time. Did you find that to be a pretty creative period for yourself?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was, in a way, it was very good for us because it gave us the time to really write music, which is becoming increasingly challenging because we're touring so much. We played 150 shows again after the end of the pandemic in the whole, during the last year, basically. And just before the pandemic, it was similar in 2019. We've been out for pretty much the whole year in Europe, India, Australia, and Japan and Russia. And so we can't ride on tour. We need to be, I need to be in a either at home or in a place far away where I'm really not distracted. Like I can't, I don't even have time to pick out my guitar to ride on tour, you know. And then I also have Pelagic Records to operate while on tour, so the hours of my day are very full already. So if it wasn't for the pandemic, then I don't know when this record would have happened. It certainly would have happened at one point, but it might have been another 3 to 5 years further down the line. So it was good. It was a very creative time, sitting at home without any distractions, even without any options to go out and do things, is what drives you to essentially pick up your guitar or your synths and write music.
Yeah, definitely. You mentioned that some of the music that was coming through at the start, you didn't know if this was going to be an Ocean's album or not. What was it that ended up sparking that for you to know that this was an Ocean's album?
I guess we just realized that it had that oceanic vibe. I don't know how to describe it, but while there was different instrumentation on a lot of the parts and tracks, they still carried that kind of like ocean essence, which is difficult for me, as like I'm too involved to characterize it properly, you know. But I think there's like a certain vibe that comes from certain chord progressions, certain build-ups of dynamics, and just the way we write music that is quite characteristic. And like we realized that these tracks, they still had that, although the instrumentation was sometimes different, although some parts were like almost trip-hoppy, you know, they still had that core ocean feel to it somehow, and that like that emotional essence that has characterized this band over the years. And so like it didn't feel strange or foreign or even experimental for us. It just felt like natural, you know, like a logical evolution and a logical step for us to take after the last record.
Definitely. Did the pandemic make it hard to record? Like, I know that was one of the biggest problems that bands faced here in Australia. I live in Melbourne, which ended up being the most locked down city in the world during the pandemic. And it was very tough to get out to people's homes to record or to get to a studio. Did you find that a bit of a challenge in itself?
Well, we wrote this record in late 2020. We didn't start recording it until 2021, when things were already a bit easier over here.
Yeah.
And we recorded drums initially at Peter's place. He owns like a big recording studio, like an old mill in the north of Germany in the countryside. So this was like the perfect, I mean, you're even in isolation there when there is no pandemic going on, you know. There's just nothing around. It's like fields, and it's a residential place where everyone can stay in their own room. So that was actually the perfect place to record even during the pandemic. And everything else we tracked in Berlin ourselves. Loic and me, our singer and me, we actually built ourselves a little recording, like a small recording room and a small mix room here during the pandemic. That was another thing we used all the extra time for, like in a basement in Berlin. So we have a rehearsal space there. We have a small recording room where we could track guitar, bass, vocals, and all the like brass instruments. So we were quite independent, and like in times when it was really hard and like, you know, like heavy lockdown, we would just go to the studio one by one to work. So Loic was working on the vocals for some hours, and then I was coming to track guitars. So it was all quite manageable because of the setup we had.
There's so much going. Yeah.
I have to say though, like it's also because we're not that band that rehearses a lot or like that jams writing. Like it's a quite intimate process for us, composing music and also recording this album. We were hardly ever more than two people in the same room together, you know. So like when we were tracking drums, it was Paul, Peter, and me in this massive farm building, so that worked fine. And then for working on vocals was only Loic and me, and tracking guitar was only David alone or me alone. So like we could, it would be more difficult, I think, if we were a band that kind of relied on getting in the room together to rehearse. And the only time during the pandemic we were in that situation was when we did those live streams of Thunderzoik 1 and 2. That was like in early 2021. It was in the middle of lockdown here, and that was challenging because we had to get back together after a year of not seeing each other to rehearse for like 2 full album streams, so basically like 100 minutes of music, and all stuff that we never played before. So we had to play, like we had to rehearse for like 3 to 4 weeks, and that was like really difficult in Berlin. So we made it work, and in the end, I think it's one of the things that kept us alive, because there was a really depressive time, and like nothing was going on. There was no fucking light on the horizon at the end of the tunnel. So being able to get together during that time to just be in a room and play music with some physical distance between us, was magic. Like it kept us alive, I think.
Definitely. Now, one of my favorite tracks on the album is Sea of Reeds, and that just shows how willing you guys are to experiment. Of course, having the sound of the vibraphone on there and the brass and everything. Tell us a little bit about some of the instruments that your fans can expect to hear on this album. Was there something that you went out to find especially to use on this album?
First of all, let me tell you what there's not. There's no strings, except for guitars and bass, of course, but no classical stringed instruments, which we have used on previous albums a lot. Like we even used to have a cello player in the band. But on this album, there's none of that. There's a strong focus on brass. And there's like brass arrangements in almost every track on the record. So this has become quite a characterizing or defining element of the album, and that decision was made relatively early to only use brass, to really focus on that. I really fell in love with especially the lower octave ranges of trombones and tubes and how they resonate with guitars. I think that was just working out awesome, and so I made the decision quite early to just focus on that, and I think it really gives the record a certain vibe and a certain direction. And apart from that, I bought an old vibraphone also during the pandemic, which is an instrument I've always wanted to have and fool around with. And I finally found one. They're very expensive, but I finally found one for a reasonable price somewhere in the dark east of Germany, and drove there for 3 hours to pick it up, and that also ended up being used quite a lot on the record. I think there's 4 or 5 tracks where we're using that. I'm not very good at playing it, but I'm not a drummer, so it was mostly Paul recording those parts, and he figured it out very, very quickly how to translate what I wrote into actually physical movements of his hands. So he's very skilled at that.
I think we all went out and bought things that we really wanted during that time. I was hunting down a hurdy-gurdy during that time because I really wanted to use one with my music. So I think a lot of us did that at that time.
Yeah.
So
yeah, for sure.
So going back to my favorite track, Sea of Reeds, that track, of course, is inspired by the Tale of Exodus. What else was inspiring you with this album as well? Were there other things that you found inspiring you when you sat down to work on this album?
Yeah, for sure. I was reading again a book I had read during my studies, Guy Debord's so The Society of the Spectacle, during that time, and I found that it hasn't lost any relevance, or that it actually aged very well, this book. It almost seems prophetic, how he's talking about the power of the image, and how actual content is getting replaced by representation, and all these things that we almost feel he's talking about modern day social media, and our Instagram and YouTube society. But this was written in 1967, so long before the internet. So that's why I had the impression it's almost like a prophetic article. And so that became the foundation for the lyrics to the opening track, Pre-Boreal, and we also splattered quotes from that book across the booklet of the album. So yeah, a lot of it was obviously under the influence of this weird time that we were going through. This with all these unprecedented developments, all this social segregation that came from what people believed or what people thought were happening. Even in my close circle of friends, all of a sudden there were different camps, based on what people were thinking was going on, and it was a very bizarre time. And I think this all left its marks on this record. It's a very, we use Holocene synonymous with the modern, or more like the postmodern age, basically. And I think it's a very postmodern record, and that every track has its own agenda and its own topic, and so like the credo of the multitude of different views and perspectives is like a classical postmodern type of attribute, and I think that is like that has been the general approach towards writing lyrics for this album too.
Definitely. Now, I also wanted to, I know we're running out of time very, very quickly, so I'm jumping over a couple of questions, but what have you now got planned for the rest of this year? This is the 10th album of yours that's come out, which is a bit of a milestone. Have you got anything special planned for the rest of this year now?
We have a European headliner or co-headliner tour coming up in September, October. So this is the big event that we're preparing for slowly. We obviously want to play Holocene material, and we have to rehearse and relearn that, because the way we work is that we always we write the music, then we forget about it, then we relearn it before we record it in the studio, and then we forget about it again. This is where we're at right now, and now we have to relearn it a third time in order to be able to play it live. So that's going to take a lot of our time in the coming weeks to actually prepare all the Holocene material for the live environment. And then we have a couple of summer festivals coming up. We want to go back to the US in November, December. That's but still in the early stages of planning. And we definitely want to come back to Australia next year. It's been too long. I think the last time was it was in 2019, I think.
Yep.
We came over for Procfest, so it's time. We haven't played Phanerozoic 2 in Australia yet, and obviously not Holocene. So yeah, we would really love to come back early next year. So we're starting to discuss that now as well.
That would be amazing, and we'll welcome you back with open arms. For now on our show, we are going to play Sea of Reeds once again, but what would you like to say to all of your fans out there, not only before they listen to this amazing track once again, but also before they go out and grab the album as well?
Well, prepare yourself for a journey, and hopefully see all you guys back over in Australia. We love coming there. We've been there already 4 times, and it's definitely up high on the list of priorities to come back to Australia and New Zealand. We can't wait.
The vast sea
Well, listeners, welcome back to Subculture After Dark. I am very, very excited right now because we are about to chat to Oceanlord, who I feel have dropped one of the best albums of this year. The brand new track, Kingdom, is one of my favorite tracks going around at the moment, so it's with much delight that I get to welcome all of the members of Oceanlord on the phone right now. Guys, welcome to Subculture After Dark.
Hey, how you going?
Now, guys, like I said, this album is an absolute masterpiece. Tell us a little bit about how this album came about and got to where it is today.
Yeah, it was a long time in the making. There's riffs on this album that probably kicked off somewhere around 2016 when Jason and I first started playing together. But over the course of probably 2019 and 2020 is the majority of the writing came together for the album, and so it was just a lot of putting down ideas, working together at rehearsals, and finding music that moved us and had that right depth of heaviness we were looking for.
Now, I've caught you guys while you're sitting down having a few drinks, celebrating the album coming out today. How do you guys feel now that it's out there for people to listen to?
I think we're all kind of proud of ourselves just at the moment. It has been such a long time coming. It was recorded quite some time ago now, and it's just inched its way towards release. You know, even release date is today, and we only received the records and CDs in our hands today. They were stuck in customs for a while. So, yeah, it's just a huge sense of excitement.
For those non-musos out there who aren't in a band or aren't an artist, what does that moment feel like when you actually get that physical copy there in your hand and you can look at it?
I can answer that because I probably fit that bill more than anyone else in the room. It is like Pete and John have played in other bands and released stuff before. It's kind of mind-boggling that I'm literally looking at our album cover, the vinyl. It's insane to think that the stuff that we've been working on is now real. It has an actual physical component, as opposed to us sharing tracks on Dropbox or something like that. Yeah, it's exciting as hell for a first time being on an album for me. But the other guys might have a different view. Oh no, it's still the same, and it's so exciting to have just a whole team working together to make an album. You know, like there's the three of us making music and writing music and doing everything that we do, but Magnetic Eye have come along, and Jad at Magnetic Eye, and you know, his whole team have put this together, and so it's just, you know, it's really humbling, but it's wonderful to have a team of people working to push, you know, your artistic vision out into the world. And then, you know, the doorbell rings this morning, and the postie has 3 big boxes of records and CDs for us. It's awesome. Pretty exciting.
In 25 years of music journalism, I don't think I've ever heard an album that has an atmosphere on it like this album does. It just, I'll admit, the day that I received the digital copy and I sat there and listened to it, I just listened to it over and over and over. What was those initial discussions like when you guys sat down? Like, what did you guys want to achieve with this album?
Firstly, oh wow, thank you for those words. That's stunning to hear that. And, we may quote you. But you know, it's funny because we've had moments writing music where we've been jamming on a riff and we've been, you know, changing it up and playing it different ways for a couple of weeks in a row, and then you try just one change more, and just the feeling is electric in the room, and you know, the music stops and we all look at each other and think, yes, this is the one. You know, there's those moments, but there's also just so many painstaking moments of thinking and starting to wonder, am I overthinking? You know, do we change this some more or do we leave it where it is? So yeah, it's a real roller coaster writing music, because there's so many ways of thinking about it, not just the overall impression, but, you know, when you're writing the music, you get right into the weeds, and it's easy to get sort of lost in the details and forget the bigger picture. So it's great to hear other people's impression of it and hear your impression
impression of it because you haven't been slogging through the details, so it's great to hear how it sounds without that perspective.
A lot of bands went through that during the lockdown. I know of one band who completely recorded an album, and they said that they had so much time to sit down and listen to the music during the lockdown that they ended up scrapping all of the tracks and re-recording the entire album. Was there a danger of that for you guys as well because of the lockdowns and things like that, where you did overthink the music?
A little, yeah. But I think the other side of it is we sort of had a talk and we decided that a good way of thinking about a record is that it captures who you are and what you're writing the day that you record it. And so, you really just got to pick a moment in time and say this record will be what we are today. And it doesn't matter that we might grow or change in the future. You've just got to sort of pick your time and back it. And so I'm really glad that we did that and captured what we did.
I know.
Part of that is like we've been playing these songs in gigs, and we've already started to shift a bit on how we play them, and that's natural. It's going to happen. The things are going to evolve. So, yeah, like Pete said, it's just a snapshot in time.
I know horror and Lovecraft are big influences on you all. What were some of the things that were influencing you with this album?
Yeah, the Lovecraft element has been a strong influence, and I think with Lovecraft writing, he doesn't write action-packed, bloodthirsty monsters, killing people left, right, and center. It's this more of a sense of kind of the insidious corruption of the world around you and the inescapable power of this huge presence. And I think trying to work with those sort of vibes, that it's not so much a hack and slash, but it's the uncomfortable reality of the overwhelming weight of darkness.
Definitely. Now, tell us a little bit about the recording process, because you've got a home studio now. How did that help out with the recording process?
Well, we actually had we did have something booked in at a recording studio. It must have been a few months before we actually ended up recording, and for whatever reason we couldn't do that. So we had to sort of delay things, and I think we may have delayed it twice. And at that time Pete was soundproofing his garage, and it just seemed like, it was a gamble, but it was something that we wanted to try, and it meant that we had some time to actually record things. But it was definitely very DIY. But in saying that, the mixing process, we actually had Espen Willems, who plays drums in Oceanlord in Sweden. He mixed it for us. So it was a case of getting his advice for mic setup and for things to improve sounds that were being captured, and then we were sending him files overnight for him to mix, which I guess was you didn't get that sort of immediate feedback that you'd get in a regular recording studio, but I think it really worked for us.
Yeah. Does it take the pressure off as well, because you can kind of go at your own speed and you don't have that pressure of watching the dollar bills go out the window in a studio?
Yes and no. The dollars were definitely a factor there. We saved that, but we could spend that on beer. But the important thing was, we had a time frame. We still had a time frame that we had to do this. So it was a case of we've got day jobs. We had to take work around that or take days off because we really wanted to get this stuff done. It was when we were recording. It was leading up to Christmas. Esben had. Oceanlord was about to go and tour the States, so we had a window to get his services, or it was going to be a couple of months later. So we kind of had a sharp window still. So, but next album might be a different story.
Yeah, I think we ended up sending him the last lot of files the day before, the deadline before he absolutely needed all of the files to start mixing.
Wow. Well, guys, you mentioned before about playing some of these tracks live. You've got 3 shows coming up as well. How does it feel being able to get out there and play these tracks live now?
It's fantastic. Jason's laughing because we've been playing the tracks for probably the last 2 years as they've been evolving and recording. But
we've been gigging. We've been gigging hard on this.
And, you know, like we were also, you know, some of the earlier bands out of the gates. As soon as, even between lockdowns, we played shows where we could. We sort of jumped on everything. So it was, it's been fantastic seeing things kind of like evolve and open up. But yeah, we're really excited about these launch shows.
Well, guys, we're going to play Kingdom on our show right now. It's a track that, like I said, I've fallen in love with, so I want our listeners to hear it. What would you like to say to everybody out there, not only before they listen to this track, but before they go out and head out and see you guys live and go out and grab the album as well?
Well, if they're going to come and see us live, come and say hi. Absolutely, like, before, after the set, come and say hi. We'll have a beer, we'll have a chat, all that shit, but we'll have a really good time. Like, I personally really love it when we have a good gig where we can get some feedback, you know, through the crowd, just enjoying it. When they enjoy it, we enjoy it more, and vice versa. So if they're coming to a show, come and say hi. That'd be great. As far as listening to the music, just listen, hear it, let yourself go.
Awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, guys, I'll let you get back to your drinks because you guys truly deserve it with this album. We're going to play Kingdom right now. Have a drink for me, and I'll see you at a show very, very soon.
Yeah, cheers, Dave. Thanks.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, Dave.
was the mighty Oceanlord on Subculture After Dark. Kingdom
So
is
how's the ocean? Is it kind of cold? And just that's a precursor.
I don't know. I just thought it was so. I thought it was so weird that we had both the ocean and
And
Oceanlord
Oceanlord, yeah.
on the one
People are going to
episode.
be so confused flicking through. Hang on, which one am I waiting for?
But you know how I love to share stories about when you're doing interviews and like things that could go wrong. I did those two interviews back to back with 10 minutes in between. And I was so worried that I was going to slip up and say like, oh, this is Robin from Oceanlord. Oh, no, it's not. Like, and yeah, mess it up somehow, but got through it. But that album by Oceanlord, I'm telling you, go and check it out. It is an absolutely amazing doom metal album. And as you heard from that track Kingdom, it is absolutely stunning. I can't wait to see where these guys go next. From a band that started up during the lockdowns here in Melbourne during the pandemic to where they are today. These guys, I'm pretty sure, are going to be sharing some of the biggest stages in Europe over the next few years.
Yeah, this is fantastic hearing stuff like this. So yeah, looking forward to more from them.
Awesome. Well, we're going to close the show with a band that recently toured Australia. Static X were here in Australia and put on some amazing shows. So we're actually going to play Cold from Static X right now on the show. And of
there
course,
it is. Cold.
Yep.
See,
Yep.
told you.
and this is a track that, of course, was in a movie that you and I love, Queen of the Damned.
Yeah. Were you in that one? I was supposed to be in it, and then my phone changed in between the signing up to be an extra or whatever the heck I was supposed to do on it, and yeah, my agents couldn't get a hold of me, so I wasn't in it in the end. But so much of what I heard, like people I know that were in it, all had their scenes cut anyway. So
I was in one of the crowd scenes, but the really weird part about watching that movie is that at one point, they go into a nightclub, and it was a nightclub that I went to a lot when I was younger, and there's a pretty famous couch, let's just say that, that makes its way into that film that a lot of my friends during that time had a lot of fun on. Let's just put it that way. I think it's probably the best.
So many of my godchildren were born.
but one of the stories I love about that film is I don't know, it's just going into film, but hey, it's a heavy metal show as well. Pip Mushin, who is an actor here in Australia, who most people would know from Frontline, where I think he played the cameraman in Frontline. He's got a really, really small kind of extra role almost in Queen of the Damned, and he's being fed off by a vampire. And in the credits, he's actually credited as Pip Mushin, guy getting sucked. That is
that would be the headline on my acting CV. Just like best known for a guy getting sucked.
There's so many stories like that, like when people get credited with credits. I was reading one recently where it was a foreign film, and someone had said, what did this girl do to deserve this? Did she piss off the director or something? There was a scene in the film where there was a bunch of high school girls, and they were listed in the credits as High School Girl 1, High School Girl 2, High School Girl 3, High School Girl 4, Ugly High School Girl. I like, because people have shared it up online and said, what on earth did that one girl do? Because apparently there's nothing about her being ugly like in that scene. It's 5 schoolgirls. It's like, oh man, that is terrible. But yeah, we thought we would play a classic track tonight from Queen of the Damned, which, if you've never heard that soundtrack, that is an absolutely amazing soundtrack with so many heavy artists on there. Just absolutely stunning. And they're really funny.
Despite what was done to the film, the soundtrack is actually pretty awesome.
Yeah, and the really funny thing is that when that soundtrack came out, it sold out so quickly. But now I see it all the time in like Vinnie's and Salvation Army stores. So if you want to go out and grab yourself a copy, grab it.
It's just like the Australian Idol winners.
Yeah,
they sell out the next day, and then the day after, all their CDs turn up in cash converters. That's very strange.
That's actually one of the soundtracks I hope that they bring out on vinyl. I'm hoping that like one of the record labels out there bring out the Queen of the Damned soundtrack on vinyl, because I think that would make an absolutely amazing album to have a copy of on vinyl. So hopefully they do that one day. But to finish off, Harley, where can people go if they want more information about any of the stuff that they've heard on Subculture tonight?
Well, they have to check out www.subcultureentertainment.com. And like I said, if they're looking for, reaching out to us or asking questions about how they can submit a cover of like a pop song or something that they want to heavy up, we would love to hear from you. You can reach out to us on the social medias, Subculture Entertainment on Facebook, Twitter, Discord, or speak to Subculture Dave on Instagram.
Definitely. And thank you to everybody who's helped make this episode tonight happen as well. Chris Marek, Ophelia, and also David, who most people in the industry would know as the Metalist, because that's the name that he goes by. But thank you so much to you guys for helping make this show happen. And yeah, go to our website, subcultureentertainment.com, because all of the metal news that we get sent through from all of the publicists go up there straight away. So if you want to have the information about tours, etc., first, then yeah, our website is a good spot to go. But
and just to type in the search bar if you're looking for a specific thing that we've talked about tonight, or
definitely. And also a big thank you to Harley, because Harley edits all of our shows. Not only does he join me in hosting it, but he also edits everything. So thank you so much for that, mate.
I'd like to thank God and my parents and my agent for this fabulous award, and the industry. And sorry, I got carried away there.
Awesome. Well, we better get out of here and put some Static X on. But for now, I've been Dave G.
And I've been Harley. And we'll catch you next time.
See you soon.
We kiss the stars.